Hello and welcome to this video where we're taking a look at some massive proposed changes to the driving test that will affect pretty much everyone, so not just driving instructors and learners, but driving test examiners and even members of the public. This will be quite a long video, so we're going to get straight into this, but there will be chapters available so you can skip ahead to the parts that interest you. And I'd like to point out this is an open consultation. It's been open for the last month and I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get this video done, but I've just been so busy I haven't had time. But this is still open at the time I record this video for the next couple of weeks. So once you've heard these changes, it's really important that you please go and have your say. You can just click on a link in the description and you can have your say on what you think about these things. Whether you're a learner, an instructor, an examiner, just go and leave your feedback and let them know what you think. So let's get straight into this. I won't read every single thing because it's such a long document, but quite simply the foreword says, safe driving is a lifetime skill and something that improves with experience. And they go on to talk about how this is about raising the standard of learning and making everything better. So you can read this through if you want. There'll be a link in the description to this document. But these are the 6 key areas that they're looking at. They're looking at encouraging learner drivers to be better prepared when they take their car driving test, reduce the number of car driving test appointments that are wasted. This is going to be a big one to talk about. Collect better data about how well driving instructors prepare learner drivers. This is going to be a huge one. Give learner drivers better information about driving instructors. We'll be talking about that one soon. And if you're an instructor, you're not going to like this, I can promise you. Update when and how we carry out the eyesight check at the start of the driving test and replace paper pass certificates with digital pass certificates. So why they're doing all this? It's because currently they've got massive demand, as you know, driving tests. There are roughly 6-month waiting times or longer for driving tests. So there are 3 main reasons for this. Fewer tests than usual have taken place because of restrictions and other factors related to the pandemic. Learner drivers who are not yet ready to take their test heard that waiting times are high, causing them to book earlier than they normally would, and the pass rate for driving tests for many years is about 50% of people who take it pass, or less than 50% pass on the first time. So again, you can read all of this if you want by pausing this video or going to this document. But I want to get straight into the main points because otherwise this video will be taking too long. Other things they're doing to reduce driving test waiting times, you can see they're helping stop the spread of COVID, significantly increasing the number of examiners. They're increasing the number of tests examiners carry out. They want to get all qualified DVSA colleagues out doing driving tests even if it's no longer part of the current role. So even people who have kind of been promoted above examiners will have to go back and do tests. I wonder if they'll be happy about that. They'll provide extra appointments in the morning, evenings, weekends and bank holidays. That's unusual. They want to pay driving examiners to work instead of taking their full amount of annual leave. And they're going to ask recently retired driving examiners to return. There is one in particular by me who I would love to see return. They retired a couple of years back and they were really, really good. And I'd really like to see them come back, but I don't blame them if they don't want to. So anyway, these are the 6 main things. So the first thing I want to do is encourage learner drivers to be better prepared when they take their car driving test. So this is a big thing already. They're proposing that people will need to wait 28 working days before being able to book another car driving test after failing one, rather than the current 10 working days. So at the moment, if you fail a test, you've got to wait 10 working days before you can take another one. You can book it straight away, but you won't be able to take it for 10 working days. They want to increase this to 28 working days. Now, you might think, oh, that's really bad because I'm going to have to wait longer for a test. But let's face it, at the moment, I'm recording this in late February 2022. When I went on to book a driving test a few days ago, they were booking them for late August, so that's 6 months away. Now you can't even get them, so it's gone over a 6-month waiting time and you can't even get tests at all. And I'll still get people emailing me saying, I need to pass in the next couple of weeks. And I'll say, have you got a test booked? And they'll say, no, you've got no chance. You're looking at 6 months plus. And if you fail your test, then you've got to wait another 6 months plus. Fail again, another 6 months. This is why they're bringing in these changes. So although they say you're going to have to wait 20-hour working days, in reality, you're going to be waiting about 180 days anyway, because you simply can't get one before then. So they're saying this would reduce the number of people attempting the test when they're not ready, because they would know they would have to wait longer to be able to take it again if they failed. Like I said, you're waiting 6 months anyway, so 28 days isn't going to put anyone off. And it means that people who fail have more time to take further training. I can tell you from my experience, 20 years of teaching people, that doesn't happen, because what people do is once they fail the test, they'll book one and then they'll wait to the week before, then suddenly try and cram in 1 or 2 lessons to take that test. Not many people just continue taking lessons, because if you say to someone, you've just failed your driving test and your next one is 6 months away, you've got to keep doing lessons every week until you test. That's not fair. Why should they take lessons for 6 months when they were ready? They just messed up on one thing. So we know from research that driving instructors are very busy. Many have had long waiting lists for lessons, and it's saying all this stuff about how instructors are so busy. So that's one of the first big key changes. This change would only apply to car driving tests. Other types of tests such as bikes, HGV, would stay the same. ADI tests, instructor tests would stay the same. So why they're proposing this, they think that it would help to, with making this change, will reduce the number of people who attempt the test when they're not ready. So simply they want to make it so that you only turn up for a test when you are ready. This is something I disagree with completely, because you may know from watching my videos, I'm not just a driving instructor, I also work as a therapist online, and I help people all over the world to overcome driving anxiety and phobia of driving. And I can tell you now that the number one reason people fail driving tests is nerves. It's not because they haven't got the ability, it's not because they haven't been taught properly, it's because they are nervous, and it's the big day. They've been waiting 6 months for this test. It all depends on this. And they go out and they make a mistake because they're nervous and they mess up. And that's why they fail. It's nothing to do with them not being ready. The DVSA are always saying about how it's instructors' fault that so many people fail because we bring them for test before they're ready. That is not the case at all. We all know that taking a driving test is a big thing. Nobody would like to take a driving test. If you take someone who's been driving for years and years and say to them, you've got to retake your test, they'd be terrified. People hate taking driving tests. So it's nothing to do with not being ready. It's because you've got someone sitting next to you, marking you, assessing you. Who likes being marked and assessed? It's not nice. That's why people fail. It's not because they're not ready. It's because they get nervous and they mess up and they fail. And I know why that happens, because of the work I do with my therapy and working with the mind. But they don't take any of that into account. They just look at it as they're not ready, so instructors aren't teaching them properly. It's the instructor's fault. Punish them. So anyway, you can go and have your say on this in the proposal. And it says, do you agree with this? Well, I'm not going to give you my opinion. You probably already know what it is, but I know what I'm going to be saying about that one. So if you're a learner driver, you can say to what extent you agree as well. And that's it. Let's move on to the next thing. They want to reduce the number of car driving test appointments that are wasted. This is the second of 6 big things. So they're proposing that people would need to move or cancel their driving test 10 full working days before the appointment to avoid losing their fee, rather than the current 3. I'd like to point out, by the way, I haven't read through this document before doing this video. I thought I'd make this kind of off the cuff, so I'm surprised at that. They want you to give 10 full working days notice to cancel your test. As I say, I've been so busy working, I just haven't had time to even look at this. But they're saying that you need 10 full working days, and that gives more chance for appointments to be used by someone else. And it could make up to 117,000 appointments available every year based on cancellations. So yeah, I won't go over all this again because this video is going to be quite long anyway, but quite simply, you may have to give 10 full working days notice. They continue to use discretion on enforcing this in cases such as illness or bereavement. So if you're ill or you've had someone die in your family or whatever, then they may not charge you. So yeah, why they're proposing this? It's because they want to, obviously make more tests available. And this is really what the whole thing comes down to. They just want to make more driving tests available because the waiting times are so bad. That's what all of this is about. So is that a good idea or not? What do you think? Would it be better to have it so that you've got to cancel your test pretty much 2 weeks ahead of time instead of a few days? Have your say. Let them know what you think. This is going to be one of the bigger ones because this is something that's really going to affect the way that people are taught. Collect better data about how well driving instructors prepare learner drivers. So we're proposing that driving instructors would be legally required to display their approved instructor ADI or training driving instructor registration certificate in the windscreen of the car when they bring people for driving tests. So let me explain what this is all about. I made a video about this last year. What they're doing is they're saying that when a driving instructor takes someone for a driving test, at the moment you can choose whether or not to leave your badge, what we call a badge, your certificate to teach, in the windscreen of your car. If you leave it in, they're now recording data about whether your pupils pass or fail, and if you get too many fails, then you have to resit your exam to be a driving instructor. Obviously, instructors don't want to do that, so they're taking their badges out of the car. They're thinking about making it so you'd have to legally, you must leave your badge in the car. Well, I'll tell you now, if this comes in, you can wave goodbye to a lot of good driving instructors because this is an absolute disaster waiting to happen. Now you might think, well, if you're a good instructor, what have you got to hide? We already said before, back up here, about how people fail driving tests because they're nervous. I understand what happens in people's minds. I understand where the nerves come from, and I work with people to help them overcome that. And if you want to check out the links in the description, go and see the work that I do on that. It's nothing to do with being a good instructor. Anyone can fail a driving test. Over the years that I've been teaching, I've had things happen like a pupil was driving down a country lane and a drunken man drinking a can of beer jumped out of the bush, waving his arms in front of the car. My pupil had to swerve, of course the examiner had to go off the wheel, and they failed. So can you explain to me how a drunken man jumping out of a bush means that I'm not a good driving instructor? Yes, you can teach people to deal with hazards. How can I teach someone to expect a drunken man to jump out of a bush and start waving his arms in front of them? It's ridiculous to say that just because somebody fails a driving test, their instructor is no good. It's nonsense, right? You can be the best instructor with the best car, and I was going to say with the best pupils, we'll come to that point soon. You can be brilliant and you can have pupils fail. What about if, like me, I won't say that because I'm going to save that for the next point, but this is a really important one. And if anyone's thinking, oh, well, you're just saying this because you're an instructor, I don't just work as a driving instructor, okay? I don't even have to work as an instructor anymore. For me, this whole job is now optional. I could wave goodbye to all this, bye-bye, and I could leave today, and I don't even need to be doing this anymore. So this is not sour grapes from me, because I don't even need to be doing this. I can just say, this is a joke, bye, I'm off. But I'm making this video as impartially as I can, but you can probably tell that I'm quite passionate about this because this has been my life for the last 20 years, and it seems to me like they're just throwing it all down the drain with these stupid new restrictions they want to bring in. So they're saying they want to monitor everything instructors are doing, and simply if a pupil fails a test, you might lose your job. Well, I'll tell you now, if this comes in, I don't think many instructors are going to be taking people for tests. They'll do the lessons, but as for a test, sorry, you're going to have to go and get your own car or deal with your parents. That's why I said this will affect everyone. But anyway, let's not talk about that too much. That's all rumblings in the background. But what they want to do, the idea is great in theory. They want to make it so that they simply bring people for tests when they're ready. But just because you're ready does not mean you're going to pass. And believe me, I've had people who are not ready and have taken tests and passed. I was teaching a girl years ago, and she texted me to say, I don't need to do any more lessons. I took my test with my parents yesterday and I passed. How she ever passed, I have no idea. She was terrible. She was nowhere near test standard, but she passed. So that just shows that just because you're bad doesn't mean you'll fail, and just because you're good doesn't mean you'll pass. So anyway, sorry about that, but this is my passion, this is my life. I was going to say it was my life, but it currently still is as I film this. And I'm just tired of the way that these people are coming in and ripping apart everything, because this seems to make sense, doesn't it? It seems a good idea. They're trying to make it so that the standard is raised and the only people that are ready for tests go for tests. Yes, I agree with that, but this is not the way to do it. So anyway, sorry about that, let's get back to this. So the law currently says the driving instructors must display their certificate if they're charging money or money's worth for driving lessons. However, the law does not say they must also display the certificate when they bring people for driving tests. This is what I just said about they want to record the data. One reason I don't agree with this is because the standard they've set is so ridiculously high. I can't remember what it is now. Is it something like you've got to have no more than 6 faults, 5 driver faults? That's really, really high. So they've set out these things about these indicators, and it goes on for a 12-month period. They decide the average number of test faults your pupils get, the average number of serious faults per test, the percentage of tests where the examiners have to take physical action, and the overall pass rate. And I have to stress this point. If you look at this from the outside, it looks like a good idea. You think, well, if people are getting too many faults and serious faults and the examiner's taking action, then that would be a good idea that those people shouldn't be on the test. With all due respect, I would say, if you're thinking that, you don't know what the job's really like. Right, I've been an instructor for 20 years, taught over 1,000 people. On paper, this makes sense. In reality, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Theory is great, isn't it? Theories are brilliant, but it's a practice that counts, and in practice, this does not count. I haven't read this before, but I've just read the first few words. Let's see what it says. Our driving examiners tell us that some driving instructors may remove their certificate if they're less confident that the learner driver will pass the test. This means that the test outcome is not included in the instructor's performance data. We all know this has been going on for years. You get dodgy instructors that don't want to leave their badge in at all, and they just take it out all the time, and this has been going on for years and years and years. Even before this came in, some instructors is what we call a bush instructor. A bush instructor is one who takes the badge out of the car and hides in the bush, and when the pupil gets back on the test, the examiner can't see the instructor, so they go back in the centre, and then the instructor jumps out of the bush, runs to the car and drives off. That's what we call a bush instructor, because they hide in the bush because they're so scared of the test results. Compared to me, where I've been on over 300 tests with my pupils, I always ask, do you want me to go with you? And I've been in the back of the car on hundreds of tests because I'm proud. Everyone I present for a test, I would say, yes, this person can drive, and I'm proud to be here and show that I believe they can drive. So they want to make it so it's a legal requirement for an instructor to display their badge in the car. We're exploring the range of legislative and non-regulatory options to introduce this policy. I can tell you now, if this comes in, they're going to have a huge problem on their hands, because this is going to start all kinds of protests, legal action, all kinds of privacy laws might be broken. Is it an invasion of my privacy to have all this data collected about me? Data Protection Act. This is a can of worms I really don't think they want to open. But anyway, I've spent quite long on this point. But it says, some people, blah, 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 we want to encourage more instructors to display their badge. Yep, okay, so I've spoken enough about that. Have your say. What do you think? In a small number of cases, it will help us to remove instructors from the register when they've consistently shown they can't meet the required standards. Hold on a minute. When they have consistently shown they cannot meet the required standards. Just remind me, who is it that goes on the driving test? Is it the pupil or the instructor? The instructor or the pupil? Who is it that takes the test? So they're assessing an instructor based on someone else taking a test. Anyway, let's move on. So number 4, they want to give learner drivers better information about driving instructors. This is one of the main ones that I don't think many instructors, if any, are going to like. So this is simply what they're going to do. They want to publish lots of information about driving instructors, such as how many people pass with them, how many faults people get. And this is another disaster. Let me explain why. When you work as a driving instructor, you know that you can just cherry pick the best pupils if you want to. What I've been doing for the last 20 years is I've always specialised in teaching people that struggle learning to drive. I've always taken on the most challenging, difficult pupils who have real problems. Of course my pupils are going to fail more because I'm working with people that struggle. So according to this, what this means is, now that I'm going to be assessed on my performance, I'm going to have to ignore people that really need my help and my skill and experience and expertise, and I'm going to have to say, sorry, but you're going to fail, so I'm not teaching you. I'm going to just cherry pick the best pupils who are really good, and they're going to make me look good so I can keep my job. What about people who come from poor areas? Where I live in Birmingham, there is one part of Birmingham which is one of the poorest parts of the country. Those people simply cannot afford driving lessons. They just haven't got the money. So they have to have as few as they possibly can. And then they're going to fail because they haven't had the standard of instruction they need because they can't afford it. And yet those people are now going to be dragging their instructors down, apparently, making their instructors look bad. So what they're saying is simply you're going to be judging an instructor based on their pupils' performance, which is totally unfair because there will be instructors that go out and cherry pick the best pupils. They'll only take the best ones that are natural drivers and they'll look brilliant. And then you'll get an instructor like me who works with people who struggle and have real problems. And I get a lot of fun, what's the better word, not fun. I get a lot out of that because I really love seeing people overcome problems, which is why I work as a therapist. I love seeing people who couldn't drive a car and now they can, people who've got over fears and phobias, and there'll be a video in the description. You can see where I went out with someone who was terrified of driving over bridges and on motorways, and we went driving over bridges and motorways after I'd done a hypnotherapy session. So yeah, that's what I do. I specialise in helping people who struggle. But now, I can't do that because I'm sorry, but if you struggle and you're going to fail, you're going to cost me my job. So I just can't take people anymore that are going to struggle. Because if I do, what's going to happen? They want to make more information available about an instructor's performance. So if you look at me, you might think, oh, he's rubbish because all these people are failing. No, that's because I'm actually really good. Because I'll take anyone for a test who wants to learn, rather than being a wimp, rather than being a bush instructor who just hides everything behind, look, my pupils are brilliant and I'm such a great teacher, when the fact is they're just picking the best pupils in the first place and taking them because they're more likely to pass. Here's an interesting little puzzle that will make you think about whether an instructor is good or bad. I have said this once before, but that was years ago and I can't even remember which video it was in. Imagine that you've got a town where there are 2 hairdressers, only 2. One of the hairdressers has got the most amazing, fantastic haircut you've ever seen. The other hairdresser has got really scruffy, terrible hair. Which of them is the better hairdresser? Well, I'll give you a few moments to think about that, but think about it. One hairdresser has amazing, incredible, immaculate, perfect hair. The other one has terrible hair. Which one of those hairdressers would you rather have a haircut from? Well, the answer is, of course, the one with the terrible hair. Why? Because a hairdresser with the terrible hair cut the hair of the other one. Remember, we said there were only 2 hairdressers in the town, so he cut the other person's hair. So the one that looks amazing and looks incredible is absolute rubbish, because that hairdresser cut the other person's hair. So the one that looks really good is actually really bad, and the one that looks really bad is actually really good, because the one that's bad, the one with terrible hair, cut the hair of the one that looks great. So therefore the one that looks terrible does really good, and the one that looks really good is awful, because I made the other one's hair a mess. It's the same for instructors. The ones that look the best are going to be the ones that cherry pick the best pupils and fake it all. Those of us that do the job honestly will look rubbish and have low pass rates. This is the worst proposal I have ever heard to the driving test. And I'll tell you now, if this comes in, bye-bye, I'm not doing this anymore. You can forget it. I don't even need to be doing this anymore. I'm not even going to say what I'm about to say. But yeah, you can read through this tripe if you want. I know which option 99% of people are going to go for, and I'll probably come out with some figure about how everyone agrees and then bring it in anyway. But yeah, no one's going to agree with that rubbish. So number 5, update when and how we check someone's eyesight at the start of the driving test. So this is an interesting idea. At the moment there is this rule that they must check your eyesight in good light conditions, but they want to change it so that you can have your eyesight tested in a range of conditions. So it says here the current proposals, and this is an interesting picture. What they want to do is, instead of getting you to read a number plate, they're going to get you to read from a tablet like this. I think that's a really interesting idea, and I agree with this, it's good. It's a bit silly that you can only do tests in good daylight, because people need to be able to drive in a range of conditions. And I'll just run forward a bit. I don't know if this is included in this. No, but one thing they are proposing is they want to do more tests like in the dark or in the evening. Now I don't work evenings, but that was no problem, because you'll always get instructors that do work evenings and some that don't. Evenings are when I do my therapy work, so that's why I don't do evenings. But that's not really a problem, because you could always learn with one instructor in the day, and you could have instructors who specialise in nighttime lessons, and you could send your pupil, to them instructors. So, that's not really a problem for instructors that don't work evenings. You don't have to. But yeah, this is interesting. They want to change the way the eyesight test is done. And again, I won't read all this because this video is going to be quite long. And this is quite a minor change. It's important because I'll be able to do tests at different times of the day. But it all comes down to just an eyesight test. So you can have your say about that. That's one I strongly agree with. That's really good. So have a quick read through. Yeah, so they can do more tests in different weather conditions. And number 6, they want to replace paper pass certificates with digital pass certificates. So yeah, there's not really much point in having a paper pass certificate. So at the moment when you pass, you get a bit of paper that says you passed, and then you get your license through the post. And it says 99, that's a surprisingly high figure, 99.8% of learners take that option. So 0.2 people don't take that option for some reason. I suppose not everyone has email and whatever. But yeah, so they want to make it more digital and improve the workflow. So moving to replace paper pass certificates with digital, yeah, it's all about saving the planet, save the trees. I strongly agree with that one. So those are the changes. You've got until the 8th of March 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Don't do it a second later. You've got till then to do this. So I recommend do what I'm about to do. Click on start now and give them their response. Give them your response. Those are just some changes. There are many others coming to the driving test itself. So these are like behind the scenes to get the waiting times down, privacy and freedom of information. But this is what I was saying before. They're talking here about collecting your personal data, but they don't mind collecting data of how many people are passing and failing. Anyway, so this is just part one, really, of this. There's going to be much, much bigger changes coming to the driving test soon. Whether this will happen or not, I don't know, but I have heard a rumour, it's only a rumour, that the test could be 1 hour long, so it might be much longer. I doubt that will happen, but given that they're moving the test times, they're doing all this stuff with eyesight tests, so you can do tests earlier and later in the evening and earlier in the day, that will give them time to extend the test. That's the rumour that's going around. So you might have to drive for about an hour, instead of currently it's around 35 to 45 minutes. And another thing I've heard, which they've been saying this now for 9 years, this was going through government 9 years ago, is the minimum learning time. I think it's going to come in, folks. They're saying that they want to introduce it, so you've got to do a minimum amount of hours before a test, which they're saying will be 100 hours in the day and 20 hours at night. So 120 hours, and if there is a minimum of 120 hours of tuition needed before you can take a driving test, that would be, with me, £3,600 for your driving lessons. So what do you think about that? There are many other changes. Some of them I've heard rumours about, but I don't want to say because they're quite obscure and they might not even be true. But let me know what you think about these changes. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I know some people might say I shouldn't be saying my opinion in this video, I don't want to prejudice people, but I have to give my opinion. I am me, and I can only say what I'm thinking. And given where I'm at the point in my career where I don't even need to be doing this anymore, it's becoming harder and harder for me to find reasons to do it. And I was looking around the other day at instructor training, looking for any new things that are going on in the industry, and I've seen a lot of schools saying there's never been a better time to become a driving instructor. Well, I would say there's never been a worse time to become a driving instructor. I mean, it's all going down the pan, but that's just my opinion. Have your say and have your opinion in the comments. And in this thing, go and respond now. I should be doing my response after I've made this video. Check out these other videos on the screen now for more help with your driving lessons, driving tests, and the fear of driving. Thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you again soon for more videos.